When I was 17 years old, my geography teacher gave me the book Limits to Growth. That was published in 1972 for the first time, and it was written by the Club of Rome. The book is about exponential growth of our economy and our population. And it was the first time that I was reading about the exponential growth, the destructive power of exponential growth in a scientific way. I was fascinated by the topic, but I didn't really know what to do with it, because part of me wanted to be a successful businessman, like a banker for the ABN AMRO. I know that sounds weird right now, but 13 years ago, that was very cool. But the other part in me couldn't lay it down. I really needed to do something about it. But I decided that I would do it differently than my parents, than my hippie parents who were fighting the system when they were young. So instead, I enrolled for the study economics and business at the University of Amsterdam, to study economics and business and study the system that makes our world go round, but also could potentially destroy it. In the third year of my study, I was selected for the Climate Change College. And that's a 9-month program for 7 international students, where we learned everything about the effects and causes of climate change. Highlight of this program was a 2-week trip in the Arctic, where we learned about the effects and the causes of climate change. Mark Cornelissen, the guy on your right side, left side for you, he was the founder of the Climate Change College, and he was a very, very experienced Arctic traveler. And he inspired me to start my first company to make a positive difference. Last year, he very tragically died in the Arctic region in one of his Arctic expeditions, where he ironically drowned when he fell through the North Pole ice. This tragic accident once again showed that we really need to hurry up with combating climate change, and it strengthened me in my own personal mission to make a change. Sorry, I get a little bit emotional about this. But let's get over. So my mission with my co-founders is to go to 100% renewable energy by 2030. And the good news is that this is already happening. But it is not going fast enough. In the next minutes, I will share the 3 biggest drivers behind this energy transition. The first one is exponential growth. Exponential growth of technologies. Most of the exponential technologies are driven by Moore's law, which is the fact that every 2 years, the price performance of a chip is doubling. In other words, every 2 years, you can buy twice the amount of calculating power for the same amount of money. The funny thing about Moore's law is that, and about exponential technologies, is that we as human beings are hardwired to think in a linear and local way instead of an exponential and global way. So for instance, if I take 30 linear steps of 1 meter, I will be 30 meters further, right? But if I take 30 exponential steps instead, I would be traveling more than 1 billion meters, so 26 times around the globe, or from here to the moon and back. So let me share a few examples of exponential technologies that are driven by this law. So this is one of them. 20 years ago, you needed all this stuff, and now you just have it in your pocket, right? And what is behind this transition is, for example, the mobile phone, but also personal computer and the internet. And all those technologies are converging. And the result is that the smartphone in your pocket has more calculating power than the NASA had when they put their first man on the moon in the 60s. So the smartphone in your pocket has more calculating power. That's happening. And the cool thing is that the same is happening right now with solar and with electric vehicles and with battery storage. So for example, solar in the last decade had a growth rate of about 48%. And that means that every 2 years, the amount of solar in the world is more than doubling. And that means that in more in less than 8 doublings, we could power the whole Earth with solar energy. And the good news is that battery storage and electric vehicles are only accelerating this adoption because they can store the excess capacity of solar energy. The second big driver behind the energy revolution is business model innovation. Behind, you see a picture of New York City in the 1900s. Do you see a car? Actually, there's one. 13 years later, there was no horse. So what is behind this transition? Actually, it's not technological innovation. It is, of course, partly technological innovation. But the biggest driver behind this transition in only 13 years is a business model innovation. Because in 1913, more than 80%, more than 80% of all the owners of a car in America didn't pay it with cash, but they leased it without any downward payment. So they had a lease contract. They didn't pay anything for the car, they just leased it on a monthly basis. So it was a business model innovation. And exactly the same is happening with solar right now in the United States. So over 70% of all the solar, of all the residential solar on households is not owned by the households itself, but by third parties, leased the same way. The third biggest driver behind the energy revolution are the unusual suspects. And this is a great example behind me. Let me share you the story of Jaap and Feitje. A couple from Molkwerum, and they installed 10 years ago their first windmill in their backyard. And they did it because of economic reasons, but also because they just want to do something good in the world. But this is not just a funny example. This is happening all over the world. If we look at Germany or Denmark, 2 countries where they're way ahead with renewable energy, we see that it's not the big energy companies that are the driver behind the energy transition, but it is the farmers, the cooperatives, and companies that are the driver behind the energy revolution. So for example, in Germany, the large utilities only own about 7% of all the renewable energy production. And in Germany, there are over 30% of all the energy is produced in a renewable way, in a sustainable way. So the big energy companies instead have still a business model that is based on centralized fossil energy production. In Denmark, over 100,000 families own more than 85% of all the windmills. And also in Denmark, the renewable energy capacity supplies over 30% of all the energy. Unfortunately, those independent producers, those farmers, those cooperatives, those citizens, don't have access to the consumer. So they are forced to sell their energy to big energy companies below market price who sell it to you with a profit. So we thought, what if we could disrupt the status quo? What if we could make it possible to facilitate those independent producers to sell directly to the consumer? This is exactly what we did. We created the first marketplace for renewable energy where consumers can buy directly from independent producers. Right now we have over 55 producers that actually have a capacity for over 100,000 households. It's a little bit more. Oh, that's there. It's good. And the result is that they get a better price for the energy they sell. You pay a little bit less. You know what's going on with your money. And because they get a better price, they continue investing in more renewable energy based on this better price they get. So what is our business model? How do we make it work? Well, we decided on a new business model that is only based on a membership fee. The membership fee is independent from your energy use. It's like Spotify. It doesn't matter how much you use. It's €12.50 per month. And by that, we aligned our interest, the interest of our company, with the interest of our users. So the less energy you use, the better it is for you, because you use less energy, you pay less. But also the better it is for us, because we can supply more consumers from the same source. So in the future, most households will start producing their own energy. And in this future, the old traditional model of the big energy utility is obsolete, because the old business model of the energy utility is making money on every kilowatt hour that they sell to you. So in that future, we don't need traders, but we need service providers that match supply and demand of renewable energy in a very effective and efficient way. So the final question is, what can you do? Well, you can start to produce your own energy if that's possible in your household. If that's not possible, you can buy it directly from an independent producer. But maybe the most important thing is this. You all will most probably graduate in the near future, hopefully. The question is, what will you do afterwards? What will you decide? Will you start to work for a big multinational with the main focus to make a profit for its shareholders? Or will you work for a company that actually tries to make a positive change? And maybe if you really can't find a company that makes a positive change and aligns with your own passion, start a company yourself. To wrap it up, this is one of my biggest heroes alive, Elon Musk. And he said it very, very nicely. He said, why wouldn't you try to make the future better if you're going to be part of it? Thank you very much.